decent pace for themselves. So just have them get to like a normal stride. Once it's feeling good, got to do a pretty good. Keep down, yeah. To the TV.
It's not my stride, just so you know.
That wasn't?
Sure.
Your toes.
Yeah, it's fine.
So this is on the TV. Breakdown. Anyone have any other races coming up?
Let me take this.
Cleveland Marathon. So she's actually pretty decent. So a lot of runners, you can also look at the foot. Can you see the whole foot or most of the foot on each side the whole time? Her right, she's got a little bit of, you guys can kind of see that, kind of loose side of the left foot. Right when you see that right kind of most of the time there, you kind of lose that left one again. So that's a little bit of an imbalance going on there too. And then, this is where we actually look at like heel strike as well, or forefoot, you kind of see she's on the other foot. But then also look at what's happening at the ankle. So her ankle is, I think that's yeah, so we're just going to do vertical. So some runners, they'll have like an ankle collapse when they land, so they'll, when they run, their ankle almost like dive inwards like that, and so that's really easy to see on this too. They'll either like dive inwards. Some people like dive out a little bit, but that's usually kind of like the ankle collapse going on, and that's usually like a foot strength and balance. But that's from the back. So yeah, hips really important. Knees, where are they? And then the feet, kind of the striking pattern there, and what happens at the ankle. If she did have scissoring gait, so if she had, does anyone in here know if they have like really weird legs when they run, they like cross over? No, they're going flawless.
Yeah.
So some runners, they'll have like a scissoring gait where they like, it may be subtle, but they like crisscross a lot when they run, and that's a big risk factor for IT band issues going on. So how you correct that is it's really awkward, but it's really like simple and effective too. So you would, at like on a high school track, you find the track lines, the lines around here, and you just find the line, put your feet on either side of it, and you just try and like run on the outside edges of the line the whole time. So it's really strange at first if you're used to having them cross, but that's how you solve the scissoring gait. It's just have them on each side of the line the whole run. Questions and all that? No. So she's not broken, but yeah, the biggest thing for someone like her, if she was like actually in the clinic, would be like the overstriding. That'd be like, whoa, and that was something that she exaggerated for this too a little bit. But like, if someone came in and they had it, that's like a really easy, low, hanging fruit thing to solve right there. Just like reduce that stride length. There's like metronomes you can listen to too with like ideal striking rate. It's like 160, 180 beats. But you don't want to jump it up too fast either. So if you're using the very like scientific progression, you'd go from like, if you had a huge stride, you'd probably be like at 150 steps per minute. Then you would go into like 160 and then like 170 over weeks. And you don't want to jump right into like really, really tiny steps. So that's important too. But yeah, that's running. The treatments for that would be, so like for her hip, we kind of already covered that in the beginning. So like the hip strengthening for her would be those moves that we did. So that's what she would get prescribed, was like clamshells right before you run. Like activate the heck out of that right glute, get it really strong. The clamshells are really nice because you're hitting both at the same time. That's why someone will do clamshells and then they do the other side, and they think the other side is like really weak, but it's actually because you already worked it through that first round. So because you're standing here, this side's stabilizing that whole time, and this side's pushing out against the band. So you're already getting both. So that'd be really good for her, like get both those hips fired up right before you run. And then the stride length is not exactly like a specific thing for that. It would just be the frequent steps. The other solution for if she had like really limited motion going behind her body, so I told you guys about the compensation that can have you get tight hip flexors. So she was reaching back there, and say she didn't get that far. So say her leg is like stopped like there, which is common. Then that's when you do a lot of those hip flexor stretches and hip mobility drills and feel usually better. Otherwise, yeah, that back just starts to take over. An athlete may be really efficient and fast and strong, but it's not necessarily best for their body long term. And your body's going to find a way to get from point A to point B as fast as it can. And it may not be the most like healthy way, but it's going to find a way to get there. So that's why I like to look at these things from a very holistic point of view. So for the back, yeah, if you have a really tight hip, the low back's going to start to compensate. From a strength perspective, if your core is really weak, that back is going to arch even more because the core can't cinch it down and keep everything neutral in line. So we see that a lot with people with huge sway backs when they run. That's usually a deep core issue going on. So there's just some muscles that are just not firing in here that's causing your back and your pelvis to move more than it should. And then the last bucket of that is the soft tissue issues. So after you have the tightness in the hip, the weakness in the core, the back has to find stability from somewhere. And so a lot of times it'll start to like cinch down. The muscles back here will get really tight. So anyone in here get like a back pump after they run? Like the back gets like a little tighter than it should? That's usually because of one of those issues going on. Like you either have some tight hips going on, a deep core issue going on. And part of it's just habit too. After a while you just start to get in a groove like, hey, this is how my body runs. And so you gotta kind of start from the root causes and kind of unwind each of them at a time. But that's how you should look at injuries. So if you're injured now, you want to prevent injuries, look at those three main buckets. So hey, like how's my mobility, how's my strength, and how's my soft tissue? And that's going to solve 80% of our problems there. The next section would be the knee. So if you've got a knee issue going on right now, the key areas to look at for mobility are going to be your ankle joint. So a lot of runners with really tight ankles and big toes. So if you've got a really tight big toe, I'm going to go over like a stretch for that. But if you have a tight ankle, that's going to cause your knee to kind of move more and cause more compensations at that joint. And so especially with squatting, have you guys seen like a squatter where they're so tight in the ankles that their knees just have to take on a lot more stress? So that's why the whole knees over toe guy became so popular. Are you guys familiar with him, like on Instagram and stuff? Some of his stuff is great, some of it's not as healthy for people, but his core premise is really important, like mobility at the ankle joint. Because if you don't have that, then the knee just takes on a lot more load than it's supposed to. So for knee pain, you gotta have really good ankle mobility, specifically dorsiflexion. So that's where like this stretch, where you have to do like a calf stretch. If you don't have good dorsiflexion mobility, that's a good stretch for that. We'll go over a lot more stretches at the end, but that's an example for that one. The strength side of things for knee pain, a reason for knee pain developing, a lot of it can come from the hip. So if you've got a really weak hip muscle or glute muscles, that's going to cause the knee to shift more while you're running. So a lot of times we'll see on a treadmill, someone's knee will kind of dive inwards a lot, and that can create sciatica issues or IT band syndrome, all that kind of stuff stemming from a weak glute or piriformis muscle. So for knee pain, glute is a huge focus for that one. And then soft tissue-wise, muscle knots. Have you all heard of like muscle knots or trigger points? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so especially in runners, really common to have knots in your quads and calves that are pulling on the knee joint. So quad muscle knots, if you've got a really tight knot, the easiest example is like imagine like you're looking at my quad here. If I got a really huge knot and tender spot out to the side, that can end up pulling the kneecap a little bit over to that right side. And that's very subtle, but over time, that's going to lead to some issues at the kneecap. And that can lead to runner's knee and things like that. The other area that's pretty sneaky is your calf. So if you've got a lot, this is always crazy to see on the table because all runners have really, really tender calves. Everything else can be looking good, and then you lightly touch on their calf and just squirming everywhere. So that's coming from a lot of knots in the calf muscles. And calf is really important for the knee because the calf muscles connect right to the back of the knee. So if you've got a lot of issues in these calf muscles, like a lot of knots, that can pull on the joint and move it a little bit too as you're running. So for knee issues, mobility-wise, ankle is really important, making sure we have a really loose and mobile ankle. Strength-wise, glutes is going to be really key for knee pain prevention, and soft tissue release the calf and quads. That all makes sense so far? You guys are going to be an expert at all things therapy after this. This is going to be great. So back pain, we went over that briefly. Knee pain, we did that one. And then ankle and plantar fasciitis issues. So how many people have issues there? Again, I think there's a couple. Just 2. Okay. So for those types of issues, the mobility issue is still around like the ankle joint. So if you have a really tight ankle, the plantar fasciitis or plantar fascia is going to get more strained because of that. So ankle dorsiflexion is still really important for foot issues. Strength-wise, your dorsiflexors are going to be the big focus here. So the muscles on the front of your shin. Really key for shin splint prevention too in rehab. So strengthening those front of the shin muscles. One of the easiest moves for that one is if you're leaning against a wall and then you're bringing your toes up towards your nose. So you lean against the wall, kind of lift up your toes towards the sky. That's how you strengthen those kind of front of the shin muscles. The other one is soft tissue. So especially with plantar fasciitis and Achilles issues, if you have a lot of tension in your calf muscle, a lot of knots, that's going to pull on the Achilles tendon a lot more. So foam rolling and lacrosse ball massage in that area is going to be huge for those types of injuries. So ankle issues, mobility work around the ankle, strength work in the dorsiflexors, and soft tissue in the calf and bottom of the foot. Have you guys seen like a lacrosse ball massage tool before? So if you have plantar fasciitis issues, a good therapy technique is rolling out the foot muscles. So kind of just rolling over the tender kind of foot and calf. So that's kind of how you work that area. Next part, I want to go through some of these moves with you guys. So you can all stand up, get in PT where you're like laying on your side and just doing like a little raise like that. That's very like low level, still a good move for some people. This is going to be more like athlete specific for people rehabbing from a hip. We're trying to prevent hip and knee issues. So this one, you're going to bend one knee. And then once you have that knee bent, get your balance steady first. And then you're going to move your knee out to the side. No back motion. So a lot of people, when they do this at home, they start to like crank their back a bunch. Don't move the back. Keep your core engaged. And it's moving to the side. And just keep going. We'll go a couple more. Your foot should be working a lot here too. And then your hips are going to start to burn. The other hack for this one is keep your knee behind the other knee. So don't let it drift forward because then you're going to hit a little bit more hip flexors there. So keep it to the side or slightly behind. And then you go ahead and switch sides. Yeah, you guys' feet and glutes starting to burn a little bit. Yeah. So at home, you'd like to use a little bit heavier band in this one, but this is a good kind of demonstration. Let's keep going. We'll go about 5 more here. So I like this one because you're hitting so much at once. You're getting balance work, foot stability, hip strength, a little bit of core control. And especially if you're doing it correctly, you don't want any back motion, so that's why this is.
Should both bands be above the knee?
They can be like on or above the knee, yeah. That's
Oh.
fine. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Now you
Everybody changes it.
All right, other one, while it's still on your knees, you can do sideways band steps. So this one, you're going out to the side. Big step out, slow in. Big step out, slow in. So don't, a lot of people kind of rush these, but go big steps and slow control on it. And these moves, they're really good warm-up moves. So if you want to do them like right before a run, you just do one set of 10 reps. Or you can do them as strength exercises after the run. So you do 2 to 3 sets of these kind of moves to develop the glutes. Yeah, nice. There you go. Yeah, this one, I like these because you can just take this anywhere. If people's boots are already starting to feel burned good.
Should the feet touch or
No, so
no?
you should always have a little bit of a gap between your feet. There should always be tension on the band. So a lot of people, they'll bring everything in and it's like gets slack, so keep the tension there. The other one is going to be backward steps now. So you're going to be, facing forward, and you're going to go backward, diagonal with your hips. You're going to step them like that, nice. It's another good glute activation one. So where a lot of runners get into trouble is that they'll be, working all day at a desk, right? And their glute muscles are like smushed. They're not active, they're just sitting on them all day, and they go right into running. So these muscles aren't primed, they're not ready to go at all. But the body still has to move, so that's to get from point A to point B, so we'll find a way. And so that's when we get a lot of back compensation start to develop, or other issues in the knee and the hip. So that's why it's really good to activate these muscles before you go out on a run. You can take the band off, or kind of warm-up move, This would be on the ground. It's a side plank leg raise. So I don't know if Orange Theory does these too much, but you're gonna be in a side plank position, bottom knees on the ground, and then you're just raising up the top leg. So go ahead and try this one out too. The challenge is you're gonna do 10 per side. You guys may start to feel this, especially on this side. Bottom knees bent at 90 degrees. Yeah, good. Yeah, you guys all got it. Yeah, perfect. And you can go 10 per side. That's super easy for you at home. You can do this with a band around the knees and make it a lot harder. Once you do 10 on one side, just flip over and do it on the other. You should feel both hips start to burn and activate a little bit. Because you guys all have really good form. Just remember at home, don't let the hips sit on the ground. So the hips should be off of the ground. Yeah. There you go. And then once you got those down, you can stay on the ground actually. Rolling are going really slow. So a lot of people will just rip through this and just go really fast, just try and get it done and just call it a day. We need to go slow. And that's how we actually release some of these muscle knots. So the first technique I like to go through is you start to scan the muscle to begin. So you just scan the whole muscle, go really slow over it. Like, all right, how's it feeling? Then when you hit the inside of the calf, then you go through the middle of the calf and then the lateral or outside. So like when I'm on the side, I'm like, oh, okay, I've got some knots there. That's what I'm gonna focus on. So now we go through that whole area, maybe about a minute. And then after a minute of going really slow all the way up and down, you can do a pin and stretch technique. So this is kind of an advanced technique. Super tender, but it's really good for releasing knots. You stack your other foot on top of that trigger point. So you found the trigger point in the calf, stack your foot on top of it, and then you're gonna move the ankle joint. So then we're gonna move this ankle up and down, or inside and outside. And that's how we can release some of those knots a little bit more quickly. Biggest cue for foam rolling as well is breathing. So whenever you do that, you're gonna wanna like freak out a little bit because it's gonna be pretty tender, but just let your body relax into it. Take some pressure off if your breath does kind of go away, and just ease into that one. That makes sense for the calf. Really important area for runners to do a lot. Like I said, big reason for Achilles and plantar fasciitis issues and shin splints. You've got a lot of calf knots that end up pulling on the tibia a little bit more. Hamstrings, really easy, same kind of idea here. Glutes, this is the one that's kind of unique. So 2 ways we can hit the glute. If you have a lot of sciatic pain or back pain, you may not be able to tolerate this version, right? Where you like have the foot up top. So you could just do this one where you just off to the side and just rolling the glute in pure form is slow, just up and down. If you've got like a relatively healthy hip and back, then you can try this one out. This is gonna be like the max stretch on it, and it's gonna be pretty tender. But that's a really good one to hit there. And then the last one, quads. Similar idea to the calf. You can roll, so especially if you got runner's knee or any kind of like knee joint issues, really good one to do. You're gonna roll all the way up, all the way down the quad. Once you find that trigger point, you pin it down. So find that really tight spot, pin it, and we bend the knee joint like that. Just kind of slow up and slow down. But those would be the 3 I'd start with for releasing knots in the leg and addressing soft tissue issues. All those make sense? Cool. Okay, Steph, you ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
Any questions about half manual there? Because we're always addressing it from those 3 big buckets I talked about. Like we want to look at your strength, your mobility, and then soft tissue work. So that's where we'll do dry needling, cupping, muscle scraping. Those are all really effective releasing techniques. The other service is tune-ups. So those are 30-minute sessions. So say you're here today and like, hey, I'm not really injured, but like it's a little stiff, a little achy. I've got like an annoying knee sometimes. That's really good for tune-ups. So it's 30 minutes mostly on the table. So you'll come in, maybe like 1 or 2 exercises, kind of prime the muscles, get them warmed up, and then get on the table for that. And then usually leave with like 1 exercise for home. And then there's running analysis. So that's kind of like a 45-minute session. We get on the treadmill. They usually start on the table, like I said earlier. We see where these imbalances are in your mobility and your strength, and then we go through actual treadmill training and mechanics for that. And then corrective exercises after, and then treatment. So like for staff, like after she got off the treadmill, we break it down, go through the exercises to solve that, and like technique drills, and then we get into soft tissue work too. So like she may be like that because she's got a right glute knot going on. So she could get as strong and as mobile as she wants, but if she's got like a huge knot, just like in a piriformis, that could be limiting her ability to kind of express that strength, if that makes sense. So that's why that soft tissue work is so huge too. But yeah, that's kind of how it works.